Welcome back to the Native Speaker Lightning Lessons. Here we're going to look at some more common mistakes and how to avoid them. This common mistake, could you borrow me? Borrow and lend cause a lot of issues for students in the sense that they are confused about the meaning. Is it borrow or lend? Borrow or lend? Which one is which? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, this is driving me crazy. And they have this huge issue trying to determine which one is which. Well, the good news is it's very simple. Borrow means take, lend means give. Could you lend me a pen is the same meaning as can I borrow a pen? Off you or from you can be added at the end. Students often ask the difference between could and can. I'm going to say that technically speaking, could is more formal and more polite, but to be honest, when native speakers are speaking, we don't really think about it. Common mistakes often include, can you borrow me a pen? This is wrong. Of course it should be, can you lend me a pen? Other common problems with these two verbs also include the fact that lend is an irregular verb and borrow is a regular verb. So it's lend, lent, lent, lending, and borrow, borrowed, borrowed, borrowing. When students are using lend in the past, they often use a regular form. And they say he lended me his car, which is a mistake. It should be he lent me his car. In terms of borrow, it's often a pronunciation issue when students are speaking. They see this ed and they say borrow-ed. It's not borrow-ed, it's borrowed. So borrow, borrowed, borrowed, borrowing. Don't say borrow-ed, that's a 5-star mistake. Let's have a look now at sentences with borrow and lend that have the same meaning, and let's see how the patterns compare. I borrowed a book from Jim. I borrowed Jim's book. Jim lent me a book. Jim lent a book to me. Idris needs to borrow some notes off Lorraine. Idris needs to borrow Lorraine's notes. Lorraine had to lend Idris her notes. Lorraine had to lend her notes to Idris. When you're talking about borrow, there are two options when it's a personal item or personal property. So you can borrow something from somebody or you can borrow somebody's something. So here we see a book from Jim or Jim's book, some notes off Lorraine or Lorraine's notes. Lorraine had to lend Idris her notes or Lorraine had to lend her notes to Idris. When it comes to lend, it's not important if it's personal property or impersonal property. Let me show you an example. Mike will borrow €200 from the bank. Here we're not going to say the bank's €200. Why? Well, although it's the property of the bank, it's not personal items, so it would be better to just do it this way. But with lend, the bank will lend Mike €200 or €200 to Mike. So lend can use it whether it's personal property or not. The company had to borrow a lot of money to cover its debts. In this sentence, we don't know who lent the money. We just know why the company borrowed it. So how would we write the sentence over here? Well, if we want to give the same meaning with lend over here, we'll have to make the sentence passive. A lot of money was lent to the company to cover its debts. I won't borrow the car off Tom again. I won't borrow Tom's car again. So we're back to personal property and we can see we use off or from here or Tom's car, the apostrophe S. Tom won't lend me his car again. Tom won't lend his car to me again. So you can see that the preposition to plays a major role when you're using lend, and the prepositions from and off play a major role when you're using borrow. There's no real difference between from or off, though off might be a little less formal. Another common mistake is I borrowed from Jim a book, Idris borrowed from Lorraine her notes, or Mike borrowed from the bank €200. This kind of structure might have been popular hundreds of years ago if you're reading Charles Dickens or Mark Twain, or maybe listening to folk music, you might see this structure. But in modern usage, it would be considered a mistake, so don't do it. So go over the video again, identify some mistakes that you feel you might make, and then avoid them going forward. So, if you'd like to know more about all the ins and outs of this and other language points, sign up now for our online course at info@nativespeaker.ie and you'll never have to make this mistake again. That's all from this Native Speaker Lightning lesson. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and click the bell for notifications of more lessons. See you next time.